In 2014, my family was having Thanksgiving at my grandma's house. I was about 15 years old, and we already had our feast around 7 p.m. It was already snowing at the time, so everyone began to leave the house. My grandma begged my parents to stay a little longer, and of course we did. You can't disappoint grandma. So it was just us, my grandma, my parents, and I. I began to shovel the snow for a bit because it was coming down hard. I was shoveling the driveway and got it done pretty quickly. Then I began to shovel around the house because my grandma likes to walk around sometimes. Just a small thing that makes her happy. Anyways, I was shoveling the sides and I noticed some tracks behind the house. So I started to follow them. I led to the back of the woods. The house is next to a field, and besides it leads into the woods, so it's like perfect for deer hunting. The tracks seemed to be of a person, but they didn't have that definitive boot or shoe track on the snow. I assumed the person simply came and walked away. It didn't matter though, because I still followed the tracks. It was really dark out, so I pulled out my phone flashlight, and I began to move in the woods. The tracks still headed inside, and they began to zigzag the trees. I looked all around, and I began to get a little freaked out. I was pretty far in. I couldn't see the house anymore. Suddenly, I heard something. It sounded like leaves getting stepped on. It sounded like it was near my left. I slowly got closer and closer. I looked over and I spotted someone wearing all black. The person was just standing there. I couldn't see his or her face, but they had their back towards me. It turned its head in my direction. I hurried and hid behind a tree. It felt like forever. I could hear myself breathing hard, but I couldn't stop because I was scared. Then, what I thought couldn't get any worse, my phone got a message, which led to a loud ding. I literally whispered to myself, "Shit." I then tried to see if the person was coming towards the sound, but the person was gone. I got a sigh of relief, but as soon as I turned around, all I heard were the sounds of heavy footsteps sprinting towards me. I zoomed past in the direction where I came from. I looked back, but I didn't see anything. I stopped a bit. But again, the stomping came back, and I ran until I reached my grandma's house. I felt like my lungs were going to explode out of my chest. I went inside, and my grandma and my parents were concerned and asked what was wrong. I explained to them that someone was near the house, and without question, my dad went outside. I told them where the tracks were. I then followed them, and I took the shovel just in case. My dad was in the front, and he spotted the tracks. He said with confidence that whoever was out there, that he was nearby. He then yelled out, "If anybody's out there, leave. The cops are on their way." All we heard was silence for a bit. But then we heard loud footsteps running away. And just like that, we didn't see anything. My dad still called the cops though, and he wanted to be sure that nobody was around. The cops soon arrived and investigated the area. They said whoever was here already left. My dad and I just stared at each other. We're pretty sure that that person was still around. Thankfully, that someone hasn't done anything. And every Thanksgiving, we're on high alert. Thanksgiving for me isn't really a big deal, especially since my family doesn't really celebrate it. Even so, this story happened to me on this day. I went over to my friend's house, Brian, and ate some food with his family. They tend to have their food later at night, For some reason, I was in a bad mood all day and wanted it to end. I asked my friend if he had some smokes, just to pass the time. So Brian and I went outside to smoke. It was snowing lightly. We went in the backyard and just sat on the stairs. We talked about old experiences and how high school was fun and that we miss it. While we talked, we heard some trash cans in the alley fall down. At first I assumed it was a raccoon just looking through. So Brian and I got up and went to check it out. We went around the back garage and peeked over. By our surprise, it was just some old guy looking through Brian's garbage. I just thought a homeless guy was looking for something useful, but he was making a mess. My friend Brian was getting mad because he would have to pick it up. So he yelled at the guy and said, "Hey, quit throwing stuff. You're making a mess." Then the guy stopped and turned his head slowly in our direction. He didn't say anything. He just looked at us for like a good 5 seconds and walked away. It was a little unsettling with his movements and all. But he left, and that's all that mattered. We cleaned up the trash and put it back in the trash can. Then walked back to the house. As soon as we made it to the stairs, we heard the trash bin fall. We both looked at each other and assumed it was the old guy. So we rushed at the back, and sure enough, there was garbage all around. We looked around, but there was nobody in sight. So my friend got even more furious and took the garbage bin in his backyard. That's when we heard another garbage can fall. We're like, what the fuck? We proceeded in the alley with more caution. My friend Brian went up first to see in the alley. As soon as he did, the old guy lunged himself at Brian and tried to choke him. He put Brian in a headlock and wouldn't let go. I had to literally kick this guy in the face just so he could let go. The man screamed. He was crouching and muttered something under his breath. I flicked him off and he ran away in an animal-like stance. It was really bizarre. I'm pretty sure he was on drugs. I helped Brian get up and we both went back to his house. He called 911 as soon as possible. He explained to the police what happened and described the man. We waited and waited until the police arrived. They said the only thing they could do is patrol the area and to call back if anything else were to happen. Till this day, that creepy old guy hasn't reappeared. But if he does, Brian and I will be more than ready. My Thanksgiving in 2016 is something to remember for the rest of my life. It's a weird, nerve-wracking experience that has questioned me to even talk about. I was coming home from work and it was really late. I'd say around 10 at night. I know, my job sucks. I stopped at a red light and just waited. I noticed someone pull next to me in the other lane, but you know, you don't really think about it. I just continued to hear my music, but in the corner of my eye, the person in the car was waving at me. I looked to see their face, but it was too dark. I thought maybe it's one of my coworkers just messing with me, but it's not a car I recognized. I looked at the person, but they just kept waving at me. I then lowered my window and tried to talk, but they just continued to wave. I was confused and just ignored them until the light went green. Once I began to drive off, I could see the car behind me get close. I sped up, but they would just do the same. I was going to make a random turn, and if they turned, then they were following me. I turned into a road, and you guessed it, the person did the same. I didn't want to panic just yet, so I calmly drove down the road. But then the person behind looked as if they were gonna pass me. I just think, thank God. But no, the person just sped up on the opposite lane and just rode beside me. I was startled, but I noticed there was more than one person. There was 2 more people. They all waved at me while I was driving. So what I did next was dangerous. I slammed my brakes as hard as I could and did a U-turn. I could see in my mirror that the other car did the same. I tried to hurry and reach the road to go home. I made a fast turn, and the car was well behind. I hurried and made another turn in a random street. Once I got far enough, I turned off my lights and parked near other cars. One thing I forgot to mention was the car that the people were using was a black Impala. While I was in my car, I could see headlights coming nearby. I hid low in my seat and just waited. The car that came near was indeed a black Impala. I wasn't taking any chances, so I waited a little longer. As soon as I saw the coast was clear, I drove off hoping they were gone. I drove up to a stop sign, but out of nowhere, a person with a mask went in front of my car. It was some purge mask, and he also had a bat. Then I noticed that the black Impala came up behind me. That's when I floored it and almost hit the guy. I drove so fast, I screeched my tires down the road, and I made my way back to a main road. I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to get out of there. Every 5 seconds I would check my mirrors to make sure they weren't following me. It took me about 20 minutes to get home, and I parked my car in my garage. I then woke up my wife and told her what happened. She said it was best to report it to the police, which we did. An officer came and I explained what happened to me. Obviously, the only thing I knew was a black Impala with some guys who probably wanted to rob me or worse. But the next morning, I went outside and on my front door was a letter. I opened it and was shocked. All it said was, "Good luck." I wanted to throw up. Did they know where I lived? Again, I reported it to police, and they told me not to mess with the letter in case of fingerprints. Me and my wife were scared. We did move houses though, and even to this day, I haven't figured out who were those guys.